Saint Francis of Assisi, who walked the Camino in the year 1214, may perhaps be the most influential among the spiritual and religious pilgrims in the Camino. The Franciscan spirituality is unique in its simplicity, but may have been best suited in walking the Camino. Having walked 7 different routes, we were looking for a different Camino to walk this year. One that would satisfy our sense of curiosity and discovery. Come, join us as we discover the spiritual tenets of the Camino according to the spirituality of the Franciscans. We will start our Camino in Coimbra in Portugal, following the coastal route, and we will take a spiritual variant upon reaching Spain. Are we gonna make it to Santiago? What will be the struggles and difficulties that we will face this time? And why did we choose Coimbra as our starting point? We will answer all of this and other questions as we walk this famous pilgrimage. The city of Pontevedra was just waking up when we left the Pilgrim Square. Going out of Pontevedra. Place is pretty cool, almost like any other Galician city. Just like Santiago, it looks like Santiago too. Streets going out of the city was pretty quiet as we crossed the oldest bridge of Pontevedra, the Ponte di Borgo. We found a simple breakfast after we crossed the bridge, then we met a young Korean girl who told us an interesting story. The conversation started when we asked her what happened to her face. The left side of her face was covered with bandage and her arm has a sling, clearly showing an injury. She said she had an accident on a slippery and flooded trail up on the mountain from Redondela on the way to Pontevedra, the very trail that we crossed, which is very, very dangerous. So this is where spiritual variant splits up. So we're gonna turn left. To the right is Caldadere. So we're gonna take see. Monastery is known to have been built and founded by a 7th century saint, Saint Fructuoso. Nowadays, though, it became a place of an important research of the origins of the supposedly Italian explorer Christopher Columbus. People of this area believed that Columbus was from Galicia and was actually born in Pontevedra. After all, the people of this area were the foremost expert sailors and navigators of the 15th century. For them, there's no actual documentation that actually say that Columbus spoke or wrote in Italian. The University of Granada and University of North Texas, along with the University of Santiago, are leading the effort to determining that the DNA of the descendants of Columbus matches that of the DNA obtained from the sarcophagus of his supposedly cousin found in Poyum Cemetery or Poyum Monastery. Will we ever know what nationality did Columbus carry? Was he Italian or actually Galician?
Don't ceasefire.
So if you take the Camino Frances, this is the last town before you cross into Spain, France. So the last town in Spain is Camino Frances. So most Spanish would not start in France. They start in Spain. This is the last town in Spain. And then the next big town is Pamplona. The next is Pontevedra. So you have to get in here. This is the library. Yeah.
Oh. My sensor, yeah.
My sensor. Yeah, nice. Look at this. This is the library here. So, ito yung 1,000-year-old na library. Imagine. Very clean. So after like a 400 feet climbed and less than probably half a mile, I would think 1/4, we're at the top of the mountain. So quiet, lots of vineyards. We're probably 2.5 miles away from the monastery where we're gonna stay. So Mabel said, why is there no one else who walked the spiritual variant? I told her, no one in his right mind will do this, only us. Alright, gotta go. This is what you're gonna see on Variante Espiritual. This sign right here. Unlike the Poyam Monastery, this monastery was not founded by a saint, but he's probably a step away from being a saint. Blessed Ero, though, has a very colorful story. He was once a knight in the Middle Ages who was married. One day, him and his wife prayed fervently that they will be given a descendant as they were childless. God told them that they will only have spiritual descendants, so they decided to build the monastery of Armenteira, dedicated to the Virgin Mary, on their own land. It became a haven for the Benedictine monks. Ero himself became a monk probably after his wife died. Then he asked Saint Bernard of Clairvaux to reform the monastery, so he sent him Cistercian monks. Blessed Ero later became the abbot of the Armenteira monastery, whose lifelong dream was to see a vision of divine grace. Legend has it that one afternoon, Abbot Ero decided to walk and enjoy the forest and nature behind the monastery. We were witnesses to the beauty of this forest for miles when we walked the Camino in the mountains of Armenteira today. As he took a rest and sat down, he got enamored with the sound of a chirping bird who seemed to sing a very beautiful and peaceful song to him. Later, Abbot Ero left as the sun was about to set, to go back to the monastery. When the door of the monastery was opened, Abbot Ero did not recognize the monk who opened the door for him. The monk asked him who he was. Blessed Ero said, "I am Abbot Ero." The monk was shocked and bewildered, so he called his brother monks to see if this person is a lunatic or not. Abbot Ero explained who he was and the monks brought in a book about Abbot Ero, who went for a walk in the woods and never came back 300 years ago. So right there and then, Blessed Ero realized that his prayer of being able to see divine grace was answered. The Virgin Mary showed him that 3 minutes he spent listening to the birds is actually worth 300 years of glory in paradise. He died right there and then in 1167. But to this day, both the Benedictine and Cistercian order still reverence him. The pilgrims who walked this way and who were seeking a closer relationship with God also asked for his intercession. Today, the community of Cistercian monks and nuns is keeping the tradition of Blessed Ero of welcoming and taking care of pilgrims alive. And we cherish that experience in our own Camino, as we were blessed to be able to sleep in a monastery where legends once said time stood still. Looking at the Cistercians doing Vesper prayers, we can truly say that this might be the summit of our Camino. We witness what Blessed Ero say, a glimpse of divine grace in the glory of paradise. Tonight, Sister Paula invited us to the Vespers, which is the evening prayer. As we walk the damp and cold halls of this almost 1,000-year-old monastery, I can't help but think the last tenet of the Camino that we discovered: generosity. Generosity seems to be the opposite of what a secular Camino stands for. There's always a tendency to do to each of his own mantra. Nevertheless, walking the Camino may open another window. When we see other pilgrims on the trail, kindness seems to be a natural gesture. Generosity, though, is another level of kindness. It's extending a real helping hand to those in need. It's an act of kindness. This time, though, we were often the recipient of generosity, not from our fellow pilgrims, but from the locals. They have been serving pilgrims like us for more than a millennia now. We pilgrims need to learn from them. We need to pay it forward. It was very rainy with some flooded trails going up to the mountains of Poyo to the monastery. We then had a good seafood lunch in Coimbra before a very tough climb to the monastery of Armenteira. But it's also a very beautiful nature walk. Sister Paula, the nun at the Armenteira monastery, was very kind and accommodating. She's the perfect example of a generous local. The Roman monastery is pretty simple. The Wi-Fi is not working and no signal in our room. We attended the Vespers with the Cistercian monk priest and the nuns along with 4 Italian pilgrims. The priest bestowed a pilgrim blessing upon us after the Vespers. We then ended the day with a dinner at the only bar restaurant in the village. So this is the place where we stay. It's very simple, but it's nice. It's a monastery. Look at that. Alright. Let's rock and roll. Wala nang natirang pagkain. So you get the keys, right?
Yes, nandito online.
This is what I want to see. Danos patrono querido aquí en el fin del camino, sea para todos nosotros el comienzo de una nueva vida. Amén. The Galicians calls this route Ruta de Pedra y de Alga, the route of stone and water. You'll see that the water part of the name is kind of obvious, but why did they name it of stone? Some say it refers to the stones that were brought here by the Cistercian monks when they traveled from France. The Cistercians basically created this village in the 12th century. According to a local wine expert that we encountered here when he was reminiscing on the church of the monastery where he got married and where his kids were baptized, it was the Cistercians who introduced a new kind of wine from a French grapevine. It is now called Albarino. The walk out of the monastery of Armenteira was so surreal that when we think of the legend of Ero, we wonder if it was really a legend or a real story. After all, unlike Blessed Ero, if this was a vision, we never wanted it to end. The nature for what seems like eternity during the walk was so beautiful that we took very few pictures and videos. We feel that if we do that, we would violate the sacredness of one of the most beautiful nature trails we have ever encountered. And we've seen a lot of nature trail in America, Europe, and Asia. The stone houses beside the wild river seem to add a layer of mystery on this land that time seemed to forget. So this is one of the Piedras stone houses. I have to research what's the purpose for this. They're always close to the river, so for some reason they needed the water for something. I don't know why. Well, we're here last year. We stayed in that island out there. It's called Isla de Arousa. No, we're not.
Yeah.
We stayed in Vilanova.
Yeah.
After that, we went to Vilanova de Arousa.
Yes. And it was so rainy and windy. Yeah.
Not today though. There's one thing that all pilgrims in the Camino have in common, and perhaps in abundance, and that is time. Today we took time in helping two fellow Italian pilgrims who needed help in the boat reservation to Padron tomorrow. A simple gesture of kindness and generosity may not be a lot, but to someone who gave a rose, the scent of the rose stays at the hand of the giver. Bel, remember sa mga Italiana? Look at the website. La Barca del Peregrino, www.labarcaperegrino.com. That's how we got our tickets in here the last time.
Primero plato. Enjoy it.
Started the day with a solemn mass, and then the route of stone and water is very beautiful with big trees alongside a river. We walked for about at least 3 miles, but the route goes along the river for much longer than that. Our next coffee break was at a bar 3 miles after. The weather is probably the best so far in this entire Camino. Just outside Vilanova, we hit the beach and we felt nostalgic. We reminisced our last Camino last year in our Ruta de Padre Sarmiento Camino. But this time around, we were blessed with a way better weather. We then had a restful lunch beside the river in Vilanova de Arousa. We have to wait for our host in Vilanova, but the young kid who is our host was probably the best in our entire Camino. He was very helpful and very friendly.
Sí, mira. A los 6 meses aproximadamente subimos la cuerda al barco, separamos el mejillón de la cuerda
6 months.
y los pasamos por unas clasificadoras para seleccionar los diferentes tamaños. Lo volvemos a colocar en la batea. Por lo tanto, es un proceso de selección. Esta es la principal industria que tenemos aquí
Pinero. I think I saw this restaurant. This is a restaurant, Manuel Pinero. Look at that! That's huge!
For 16 days, no matter how much rain did we get, our shoes remained dry inside. Not today though, not today. The rain was so bad that my shoes were already wet inside even before we started our actual walk.
Oh my Lord.
It's the Church of Santiago again. We've never been to that one. Or maybe we did, I just don't remember. So this is where everything started. This church is where everything started because this is where St. James' body was brought. Without this place, none of this would have existed. The idea of walking 15 miles to Santiago doesn't sit well with one of us. The heavy rain does not help my cause to walk all the way to Santiago. Plus, we could not find a cafe to start our day with, at least a cafe con leche and some pan, or pan is Spanish for bread. The boat from Vilanova was pretty small, as there's only 8 of us. The other 4 were Italians. We became fast friends as we shared the same passion with the Camino. The 2 men have done 8 or 9 Caminos, same with us. The women have been to 3. However, when they mentioned that they are stopping in Padron, it fueled someone's anger not to walk to Santiago that day because it was uphill all the way and it's raining so hard. She was raging mad. During our break in Padron, we discussed our options. I offered an option to the group that we can cancel our reservation in Santiago de Compostela and find a place in Padron to spend the night. The only problem is, it's just 10 o'clock in the morning, too early to call it a day. Our other 2 companions made a pitch to push all the way to Santiago after all. After all, we did a 1,500 feet climb to Armenteira the other day, which was our toughest day, like it's nobody's business. So armed with a half of our sandwiches, our indispensable umbrellas, and every bit of courage, we push our way north to the mountains of Galicia. Anyway, here's an interesting story about Padron. If you don't know, St. James became the first martyred apostle when Herod beheaded him in the Acts of the Apostles. The story goes that his disciples, Athanasius and Teodorico, both native of Spain, took his body back to Spain and ended up in Galicia, in a town called Iria Flavia, on the bank of the river Olia, the same river Olia that we were just on in a small boat. It was said that when their boat anchored on where the present-day location of the Church of Santiago is, the local Celtic queen Lupia found them and they asked her if they could bury their master in her domain. Amused, the queen said they could only if they could find a wild bull that would carry their master's body. After a few hours, the disciples came back with 2 undomesticated wild bulls, all tamed enough to carry St. James' body inland from the river. Convinced that what these 2 Christians are doing is something holy, the queen converted to Christianity and perhaps decided to mark the very stone where the boat was anchored before the bull carried St. James' body to Santiago. This stone was called Padron, the very stone we're looking at this very moment. Later, the name of this Roman city, which was originally called Iria Flavia, was eventually changed to Padron, based on the stone Padron. Yo soy el pan de la vida and the bread of life.
What's the name of this church?
Santiago. ¿Qué nombre?
Santiago de padron.
Santiago. Santiago de Compostela. Estados Unidos.
We had several breaks, including an expensive menu del dia lunch. When we were nearing Santiago, I made a bad decision to follow the phone navigation that took us to a scary rotonda in an effort to make an easier climb to Old Town Santiago. On this final day of our Camino, we noticed that it seems like Saint Francis was really telling us something, and they probably were the same things he discovered when he walked the Camino. First, God controls the nature, especially the weather. Knowing that we are an arm's length to our final destination, Santiago, we initially felt proud of ourselves, but discovered quickly that it's not gonna be easy. We were reminded of the first tenet that we discovered, humility. Being the windiest and rainiest day of our Camino, the day seems to be spelled in bold and capital letters. Humble yourselves before me, and I will exalt you, says the Lord. As we walk on the trails that were so muddy, you wonder if a taxi is a way better alternative. It's cold, it's wet, and worse, it's uphill the whole time. The couch sounds so much better than this. Yet doing the Camino is exactly the opposite of comfort. It is detaching from everything that makes us comfortable. Second tenet of the Camino, detachment. Being the slowest among our group, I often walk alone. The alone moment with God, though, is a blessing that I cherish for every Camino that we did. It is a moment of reflection, meditation, and prayer. In solitude, as our third tenet, our bodies might be spent and tired, but our spirits, they're well rested. The closer we get to Santiago, the more we walk on concrete. It's extremely hard walking, especially if it's an ascent. It might be too much to say, but somehow we have a taste of the Passion of Christ. Our mini Calvary is probably a glimpse of how heaven will show us the joy of suffering. Our fourth tenet is suffering, and for us, it is the essence of our Camino spirituality. The last tenet is the odd man out. Or is it? We often talk about Camino family, but sometimes it happens when we start small conversations. The act of kindness is a window to someone's needs, and sometimes a simple act of extending a helping hand is enough for a fellow pilgrim. Generosity is not only better received, but also a wonderful way of showing what a true pilgrimage is.
Whoa, that's a cathedral! Woohoo! You're here! Woohoo! Woohoo! We'll take all the pictures we want. Oh, take off your... Oh, closer kayo na para naman kayo nag-away.
So, we eventually made it to the Plaza de Obradoiro in a pouring rain, right in front of the cathedral. We were able to attend the 7:30 p.m. Pilgrim Mass, and we ended the day with a dinner with Father Manny, our favorite Filipino priest in Santiago.
So typically there's thousands and thousands of pilgrims here. Ngayon lang dahil umuulan. So that's Parador. Check this out. That's where we're staying. That's the cathedral. Right there. Yeah. Wow. I know. That's what I said when I first saw it. It's like, whoa. San Martin Pinario. Seminario Mayor. Major Seminary. Oh, yung wish mo magpare, andito na. Pwede na. It's up to you. It's up to you. If you want 2 certificates, that one is not free, ang mileage certificate.
Okay.
That's I think €2. So you will receive 2 instead of 1. So if you click the mileage, it will give you the exact mileage. So coming from Coimbra, they'll compute it.
Oh, lunch? Oh, we get free lunch?
Oh, free lunch. Gracias.
Todo el mundo es español, inglés ahora.
English.
This is a free lunch today at 1 o'clock. Hostal Reyes Católico. 100%
Okay.
free.
Oh,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
That's what Father
Muchas
said.
gracias. Okay.
Tiene corriente, ¿verdad? Blue House Go.
Our journey has ended. We have laughed, we get angry, and went hungry. We suffered, yet we were hopeful. We worried, yet we prayed. We met wonderful people, and we met annoying ones. We communed with nature and wondered if big cities are a necessary evil to walk. We attended masses and listened to nuns who sang like angels. We walked on flooded trails and barely survived. But the most amazing part of our pilgrimage is when we discovered the tenets of the Camino. It is on those moments that we realize that every Camino starts within ourselves, but ends not in Santiago, but in the arms of our loving Savior, Jesus Christ.